Welcome once more to the Tyrant-Den. which will sound like it works for this. It's going to sound briefly like this is the Halloween episode. It's not, because obviously for Halloween I'm going to be doing Homestar Runner stuff. This is just, by far my most successful video so far has been a reaction to a recent DefunctTV thing, and I was like, oh, that sucks, because I can't do any more fresh reactions, because I've seen all the DefunctTV stuff, because I love DefunctTV. Then this one popped up on my recommendation feeds. I was like, I don't think I've seen this one. It didn't have a like when I saw it, so that means I probably hadn't seen it. So we're going to check out this one, DefunctTV, the history of the original Ghostbusters. So immediately, question for me is whether or not this is going to be like a Ghostbusters from before the Ghostbusters, or if this is going to have something to do with why the 90s animated show had to call themselves the real Ghostbusters. I don't think they did. I think that had to do with like a toy line, or something like that. So here we go.
This spooky episode of DefunctTV is sponsored by Squarespace.
That is spooky.
Go to squarespace.com/defunctland for 10% off your own custom website, if you dare.
That's a really good spooky voice, though. Absolute props right there.
In the early 1980s, Saturday Night Live alumni Dan Aykroyd was developing ideas for feature comedy films. He had just wrote and starred in the hit film The Blues Brothers with co-star John Belushi, and he was specifically looking for another film for the duo to lead. Aykroyd had grown
Blues Brothers, from what I understand, is like his official move from New York to Chicago or
up in a
something.
family of ghost fanatics, and he had watched countless comedy films from the 30s and 40s of people finding, hunting, or otherwise encountering the other side. The once strong genre included films such as The Ghost Breakers, Ghost Chasers, and Hold That Ghost. Aykroyd sought to revive this genre with Belushi, but after Belushi's untimely death in 1982, Aykroyd would ask Bill Murray, who had just starred in the popular comedy Stripes, to join as his co-star. Stripes director Ivan Reitman and
this makes sense. Aykroyd's all with like the crystal vodka and stuff now.
writer Harold Ramis would also be recruited for the project.
I liked
The
Stripes.
draft that Aykroyd had wrote was a blockbuster
It's a
sci-fi
good movie,
comedy
no, but I
entitled
liked
Ghost
it.
Smashers, clearly drawing inspiration from the titles of the early genre films. As the script went through rewrites and new drafts, the title
See, that's the one for me. That it wasn't Ghostbusters original. It was Ghost Smashers. Even though like Ghostbusters does sound so much more like a pest control company.
would continue to change, until the team landed on a fitting name, Ghostbusters. Everyone immediately knew that it was perfect, but there was just one problem. The name Ghostbusters was already taken. An obscure children's television show that aired almost a decade earlier was already sitting on that title. And while that program might not have invented the ghost comedy genre, they were certainly the first to call themselves the Ghostbusters.
Which honestly impresses me. It impresses me that we had like a whole black and white multiple decades of smashers and breakers, and it wasn't until 75 that somebody called themselves Ghostbusters. That actually surprises me. Excellent opening graphic. I'd have some kind of cool opening graphic too, but I actually want viewers before I invest in something like that.
The year was 1957, and an animator named Lou Scheimer was working at the Larry
I don't know what to do
Harmon
with
Pictures
my
production
hands
company.
here.
During his time working on television cartoons, notably Bozo the Clown and Popeye, Scheimer befriended fellow animator Hal Sutherland. Sutherland was a Walt Disney animation veteran, having worked on such hits as Sleeping Beauty, Lady and the Tramp, and Peter Pan. Despite Larry Harmon Pictures going out of business in 1961, Scheimer and Sutherland continued to work together
Other people
on
have seen the
television
clowns, right?
shows and commercials, and the two eventually decided to make their own studio. With the help of former radio DJ turned television producer Norm Prescott, Scheimer and Sutherland officially founded Filmation Associates in 1962. The name of the company was a simple mashup of their fields of expertise, film and animation. In 1962, Filmation would start work on their first feature-length film, a Wizard of Oz sequel named Journey Back to Oz. Unfortunately, the ambitious project...
Which I need to check whether or not that is, because like Frank L. Baum's like his grandson did a whole bunch of them. I want to check if this is actually a book or if they're really going off script here. Okay, no, it's loosely based on Marvelous Land of Oz, which means that book got like 2 different adaptations and nobody liked either of them. Actually, no. I think. Am I getting mixed up? I think. Yeah, okay. Fabulous Land of Oz was the one with Wendy, and then between them, that's when Ozma of Oz happened, which needs an adaptation so bad, especially right now. But like, I'm glad to know this wasn't entirely another case of, with Wicked and that weird thing that happened a little while ago. And the one I actually liked the Tin Man. I actually liked the Tin Man. There's like all these people who are like, oh, let's just do our own adaptation of Wizard of Oz, but really we're just going to adapt the musical. And we probably don't even know there's just a whole bunch of books. A whole bunch of books we could be stepping in, because like the only ones I know did that was Return to Oz, kind of, that was very much Marvel's Land of Oz or Ozma of Oz. I forget entirely whether or not the second one was called Marvelous Land of Oz, even though it was about Ozma of Oz, and the third one was about Ozma of Oz, even though Ozma was only barely in it, and almost none of it takes place in Oz. So really, neither title would work for that, especially Return to Oz. Anyway, I'm getting ahead of myself. It's a whole thing, because I love the original Oz trilogy, and I really liked The Lion of Oz, which was based on one of the books. That cartoon growing up. Um, it's anyway.
It was outside of the scope of the new studio, which instead pivoted to the lucrative landscape of Saturday morning cartoons. Throughout the 1960s, Filmation would produce Saturday morning programs for many DC Comics properties, such as Aquaman and The New Adventures of Superman. The success on Saturday morning would continue for decades, with Filmation creating such popular fare as Fat Albert and the Cosby Kids, Star Trek the Animated Series, He-Man and the Masters of the Universe, and She-Ra, Princess of Power. By 19...
I still believe He-Man Masters of the Universe was based on an old shoot. Who's the guy who did Scooby-Doo? Yeah, they did like a whole thing with like a caveman who had like a magic club that turned him into a super caveman and turned his pet saber-toothed tiger into a super saber-toothed tiger. And then hell below, like 10 years later, He-Man happens.
1975, Filmation had become the king of Saturday.
Or maybe I'm absolutely wrong and He-Man came first and Hanna-Barbera was still around and they just immediately made a worse looking rip-off of it.
Morning, producing 3 times more content than the once dominant Hanna-Barbera Productions. The studio had even finished Journey Back to Oz, releasing it in 1972. Sutherland had retired.
Which I liked the art style there from a little bit I saw. It looks cute.
Run the now booming business. That same year, Filmation would release their first live-action children's show, the superhero series Shazam, based on the comic book hero that DC had recently acquired. The next year, the company would add 2 additional live-action shows. The first was The Secret of Isis, the first female-led superhero series. The second was
there's one for you. There's some trivia.
Sitcom with a fantastic name. The Ghostbusters was a children's comedy series that aired on CBS Saturday mornings at 11:30 a.m. The show's premise was deceptively simple. 3 main characters would hunt down and destroy, or bust, ghosts. When casting for the show, Filmation turned to 2 veteran television stars, Larry Storch and Forrest Tucker. Both Storch and Tucker had co-starred in the sitcom F Troop from 1965 to 1967, and their screen chemistry was undeniable. When show creator Mark Richards was brainstorming the 3rd member of the Ghostbusters crew, the thought of including a gorilla struck him. The idea came from old Laurel and Hardy and Abbott and Costello shorts. The peak of physical comedy, it seemed, could be easily reached with a man in a gorilla suit. After auditions, Hollywood sci-fi memorabilia collector Bob Burns would eventually earn the role of Tracy the Gorilla. It didn't hurt that he already had his own ape suit on hand. For over a decade, Burns had been playing a gorilla named Koger in everything from the Mickey Mouse Club to McDonald's commercials. Burns was the
so he's like a celebrity gorilla suit.
Member, but he wasn't the first choice. Another actor was hired to play the gorilla, but after his agent demanded a huge sum for his performance, the actor was let go.
Is that just a thing in like the late 70s? Professional gorilla suit actors?
Panic with no actor with a gorilla suit for a replacement and 3 days to go before filming. The producers were worried that this would mean the cancellation of the show. Finally, someone brought up Burns, and within 3 hours, he was suited up and auditioning for the role.
It's like that hard to get a gorilla suit
at that time? Of the group, Jake Kong, His
You had to
name an
get
homage
you had to
King
get a
Kong,
stunt suit
with the
wearer.
joke being that he was not the group's gorilla. Kong's bumbling slapstick sidekick Eddie Spencer was played by Storch, along with Tracy the gorilla. Both of their names pay an homage to Hollywood film legend Spencer Tracy. The three characters ran their own ghost-busting service.
It's a simple bit, but I respect the bit of not naming the gorilla Kong, having that be someone else. I respect
episode
that.
will begin with a setup of the supernatural characters to come. Then, the Ghostbusters' iconic theme song would play.
We're the Ghostbusters. I'm Spencer. He's Tracy. I'm Kong. We're the Ghostbusters. We're clever, courageous, and strong.
I mean, this is the song that I always think of when I hear Ghostbusters.
Sung by Tucker and Storch themselves, giving off a very homemade vibe as they gleefully belted out their catchphrase, "Let's go, Ghostbusters."
Well, I would hope the show that nearly had to get canceled because they needed somebody else to have their own gorilla suit would have a homemade vibe to
Every
it.
episode would see a ghost of some famous historic or literary character appear to wreak havoc in a haunted castle outside of town. The villains included the Canterville Ghost, Frankenstein's monster, the Big Bad Wolf, a ventriloquist
Who doesn't know the Canterville Ghost?
dummy, the Flying Dutchman, a mummy, a witch, a vampire, Jekyll and Hyde,
That I was.
Vikings, Merlin the Magician.
I've got a whole thing about Jekyll and Hyde. Like if you actually read it, if you actually read the Jekyll and Hyde story, you know that it's not immediately a case. I think I've even talked about this before. It's not immediately the case. Like he drank like the Looney Tunes, where he drank the potion and boom, he turns green and evil, completely different person. He's having second forth. No. He drinks the potion. He looks different, and then he goes, "This is awesome. I have a perfect disguise. I can now start doing all the stuff I always wanted to do but couldn't get away with because, I'm part of the upper crust of society." So, very, 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 very quick, that starts with rude behavior to people, and then very quickly that turns into to killing people. And all of his, and him creating he like a whole bit of it is coming up with schemes for like, how can this persona with this face use his very good doctor money, which leads all of his friends to assume that he had a relationship with a commoner named Mr. Hyde, and now that guy is blackmailing him. Oh yeah. There was a ton of gay subtext in Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde, which you never hear about now. And then the persona starts taking over. Like the only version of that which gets it right is like the 44 or whatever movie. They get it right. It's also the one where they probably make him the least not heterosexual. But that makes it scary. He only tells too much people. That's the scariest one though. They turn that into full proper psychological horror. It's awesome. Also, probably the most nudity. It also has probably the most nudity you could get away with in a movie at that time. It's less than you think, but more than you'd expect.
Magician, and the Abominable Snowman. After the theme, the show would find the Ghostbusters in their office, beginning the scene with some sort of classic slapstick gag. The intro scene would typically have some loose relation to the ghost they were about to bust, such as in Dr. Frankenstein, when Spencer describes his recent trip to Tracy's doctor.
Well, what did the doctor say?
Well, he said to eat 12 bananas and go sleep in a tree.
Tracy would usually wear a beanie or a silly hat of sorts, so the young viewers would not be scared of him. Kong would then send Spencer and Tracy to pick up their ghost-busting assignment at an...
Isn't that always the way?
antique shop.
Oh,
The ghost...
I don't know. I think the kids might be too scared. Better give them all silly hats. I wish we'd double down on that. I wish the 90s came around and started making cartoons bad again. Instead of it being all like, oh, we got to get rid of all the guns and replace them with lasers, we were like, what we got to do is we got to start putting silly hats on the guns. Oh, yeah. Oh, and like they're all that blood. Kids can't see that. You got to turn them into robots. You got to turn them into aliens with like blue blood or whatever. It's like, no. Just put a silly hat on it. Like you shove the chainsaw into the guy, and the blood is spilling everywhere, but the chainsaw's wearing a silly hat. The guy is wearing a silly hat. There's a bunch of silly hats inside with all the blood and the entrails. Like, oh, there's his stomach and his liver lying there. Both of them now on the ground. They both have silly hats on them. This is what they should have done. This is just what they should have done. Silly hats. Solves all the problems.
Those they would bust would be revealed to them in the form of a self-destructive voice memo from their anonymous leader, Zero, which would always blow up in Tracy's face, Mission Impossible style.
This message will self-destruct in 5 seconds.
The Ghostbusters
He just
assignment
tanks
would then
it.
lead the crew
Oh,
to
yeah.
a haunted castle outside
Tracy's
of town
awesome.
to bust some ghosts. The castle set was usually a spooky, cobblestoned interior or a graveyard just outside. A painting of a castle was shown between scenes to function as a contextual transition. The ghosts never appeared distinctly ghastly or ghoulish, rather as solidly flesh and bone as the show's heroes. After hijinks ensued around the castle or its grounds, the Ghostbusters would destroy the ghosts by zapping them out of existence. The tool of choice was a prop named the Dematerializer, which looked similar to a flashbulb camera with bicycle handlebars. A neon zap would emit from the Dematerializer,
Which is a
causing
very
the
cool
ghosts
effect
to
for the time, in my
dematerialize.
opinion.
Job completed, the Ghostbusters would then return to their office, completing any running gags before the credits.
Ooh, I like that tie. It's a nice tie. I would so... I was very upset to learn that these pies that were thrown in my face are just paper plates covered in whipped cream. Waste an actual pie. I want an actual pie thrown in my face, okay? Because I'm going to eat it off my face. I'm not going to dislike whipped cream. I want an actual pie, though.
It's hard to stay cool in this dry weather. External heat needs inner cooling. Internal heat needs outer soothing. And
Not doing that.
15 episodes were filmed over 9 weeks in 1975. This rapid-fire style of production was similar to the fast-paced production of Filmation's animations. No matter the ghost of the week, the true stars of the show were undoubtedly the three
look at that
leads.
leg.
Storch and Tucker never seemed to phone in any performance, handling the physical
for
comedy
them.
and line delivery as the true comedy pros that they
See, it's a great tie. It's a great tie.
were.
They were Norsemen, weren't they?
Norsemen? I thought Zero said they were horsemen. I've been looking for guys in cowboy hats.
Before they throw a net over you, let's go to the old castle.
Despite this, the scene
That's
stealing
what
was
I got, is
obviously
Norse
destined to be
accent.
the gorilla, and Bob Burns played Tracy with so much silly believability that Filmation actually received letters from viewers asking if he was real and how he had been trained. In the opening credits, Burns was even credited
Yeah, I
as
can
having
believe it.
trained
I can buy it. Trained by Bobbers. Oh, I like that.
Tracy rather than playing him. The show aired in the fall of 1975
And he's selling it.
during
He
the
is
Saturday
selling
morning
it.
time slot on CBS. The program was made for children, but it appealed to the whole family with its timeless
Fine. By Bob Thomas, Associated Press writer. When Forrest Tucker's two young daughters and their friends visited the set of this new television series, the youngsters crowded around Tucker's co-star. You know something, said the clear co-star, Larry Scorch. We're supporting players in this show. You know something else, Tucker added. We got a hit. The other actor in Ghostbusters is Kong, a 6-foot gorilla. Which is wrong. Kind of. Well, let's see if they do something with that. And he is played by Bob Burns. Okay, so they just got the name straight up wrong. Also, I think he's shorter than 6 feet. Kong is 6 feet, definitely at least 6 feet, but the gorilla is shorter than him. This is interesting. By Bob Burns, a CBS film editor whose hobby has been entertaining children's parties in his gorilla suit. The trio formed the Spencer Tracing Kong. We just treat him like a person, says Tucker, and the CBS Saturday morning show, which is violence is out and comedy is in. Tucker and Scorch on the Saturday morning period, long dominated by cartoons and adventure series reruns. Tucker and Scorch starred in with Ken Berry in 65 episodes of F Troop, which started in 1964 and is still playing in the syndication circuit. We don't get residuals anymore, but no sweat. We were paid well for doing it, says Tucker. They made a good pair, Tucker and Scorch, both off and on and off screen. For Tucker, big, 6'5", blustery. Okay, so maybe he was 6 foot tall. Blustery and hard drinking. Granddaddy taught me never to eat on an empty stomach. Graduated from the burlesque straight man. Wink, wink, wink. To Western movies pre-war, played Beauregard. To Roz Russell's Auntie Mamie. Or Mame, I'm not sure. Toured most of U.S. in Music Man. Larry Scorch took over the bewildered look of a guest to the wrong party, but he is actually one of the sharpest comics on the saloon circuit. Larry and I love each other as much as a pair of hetero Yes, heterosexual, I know. He was from the straight man burlesque circuit. He proved his point when Filmation Associates had offered Tucker Ghostbusters. Said the actor, "You got me in Scorch, and you've got me. Or, you've got Scorch, you've got me. Done." Predictably, the co-stars nurtured the belief that the new series will burst out on Saturday morning slot. Right now, the show is aimed at ages 6 to 12, said Tucker, but I know it's going to have a wider appeal. The network thought F Troop was strictly for teenagers, observed Scorch. But the adults bought it, said Tucker. I guarantee you, Ghostbusters isn't going to stay on Saturday morning. I wouldn't be surprised if we get a hit prime time in February. The actor was bravado, perhaps, but he illustrated how the show is in fashion to appeal to beyond the preteens. In one episode, the Empire State Building is mentioned. Tucker's interesting. At the time period, people already had to be very clear. We're heterosexual. We're heterosexual. We're heterosexual. We're heterosexual.
Gags, and great performances. During production, the cast and crew believed the show might even make its way to primetime. Tucker and Scorch's F Troop had also began as a children's show, but its popularity proved to reach a broader audience. They believed the same would be true for
I'm
the
not reading this one,
Ghostbusters.
too.
Tucker said, quote, "Mark my..."
I'm not reading. I don't want to read all this. I'm going to read this bit. It's Laurel and Hardy, said Tucker, with me and Larry and George playing the detectives in a partner's detective agency that deals with ghosts. What happens? Well, somebody comes in and yells, "Help, help! The ghost of Dracula is back." Where is he, this ghost? Ghost of Dracula. I love it. Well, these are the actual other things I want to look at. Merry Christmas from Management and Staff, Grandview Cinema, The Yearling, The Return of the Pink Panther, which immediately turned into a tangent on me again. Okay, here's the thing. Ooh, December 25th. Nice. There's got some friends of the family who watch, like, we only get together with them to watch a movie on Christmas. Now that's not the end. The tangent is the fact that all of the Pink Panther sequels are not sequels to the Pink Panther. They are sequels to the Pink Panther spin-off, A Shot in the Dark. Okay? See, it's not even the same, like, Pink Panther, that's... Inspector Clouseau is not the main character. The main character is the Phantom, his son, and, like, the girl, the woman who's married to Clouseau, and the whole thing they have going on. Clouseau's just this comedy relief side character. And at the end of it, he's framed for being the Phantom, he's taken into jail, and he's like, well, all the women seem to like the Phantom, so I'm okay with it. After quickly, doing a parody of the scene that was always meant to be funny in the first place from To Catch a Thief. Then they made the spin-off Shot in the Dark, starring Inspector Clouseau. Has to be a different timeline because he's not in prison, and they never mentioned that he was in prison. And that's the one which introduces things like his boss, the commissioner or whatever, keeps trying to prove that he's incompetent and kill him, and they keep backfiring hilariously on him, and then it ends with him getting hurt and getting in trouble, and then that's what all the sequels are about. Now we bring back the Pink Panther name because it's more recognizable than Shot in the Dark, but they always kind of carry that formula of Clouseau solving often like a James Bond level crime, all the while the commissioner keeps trying to prove that he's incompetent and ruin him, all the way up to the very end where the commissioner just turns into a full Dr. Evil villain. Like he took over a castle and he got like a space laser that he was using to disintegrate monuments, and Clouseau has to stop him. That went off the walls there. And those are not sequels to Pink Panther. They are sequels to the spin-off Shot in the Dark. It's different timeline.
They'll have to switch the show to primetime. Things were looking up for the Ghostbusters in the fall of 1975, as the show proved to be a big hit on Saturday morning, becoming the second most watched new Saturday morning show of the season, second to Filmation's ISIS. According to Burns, CBS wanted a second
Which is a shame.
season.
Legit shame that we're not hearing about either of these. We've completely forgot about this, and we completely forgot about ISIS, which is a shame. I don't like people saying, "Oh, what was the original one? Was it Supergirl?" Because Supergirl was bad. And when people are making lists of great female superheroes, like when they're obligated not to include Captain Marvel, which is a little annoying. But like I get it. She didn't get the best performance. They hate her for all the wrong reasons, but she didn't get the best performance either, which means that like she couldn't prove them wrong. Which I think she was doing exactly what she was told to do. I like the idea of her being. That's like, I want to check out ISIS now, I guess is my point.
Renewal, but Filmation decided to focus on their #1 show instead. canceling the Ghostbusters after just 15 episodes.
Ah.
Scheimer later admitted that this was a mistake.
Wait, what was the #1 show? I got all distracted. Is it ISIS?
ISIS. According to Burns, CBS wanted a second season renewal, but Filmation decided to focus on their #1 show instead,
Okay.
canceling the Ghostbusters after just 15 episodes. Scheimer later admitted that this was a mistake, as the secret of ISIS's popularity soon declined, and the
Oh.
Ghostbusters proved to have a strong fan base. CBS ran reruns for another year, but the show would soon disappear into
I don't know. I'm all
obscurity.
excited about ISIS, so I can't
Certainly
be too
forever.
upset about that.
Of course, this would not be the case, as the Ghostbusters was given one of the most unique revival opportunities in the history of pop culture.
Yeah.
In the mid-1980s, Columbia Pictures was deep into development on Dan Aykroyd's supernatural comedy script, with the crew dead set on naming the film Ghostbusters. Although the film bore
Which is a
no
good choice
resemblance
because Busters gives you that idea that like, oh, they're Dust Busters, they're Bug Busters. It's got that pest removal thing.
to the characters or plots of the Filmation show outside of a few coincidental similarities. The Ghostbusters, nearly a decade after its cancellation, now held all of the cards. The Ghostbusters cast and crew had cycled through every name imaginable: Ghost Smashers, Ghost Breakers, Ghost Stoppers. But when it came time to shoot,
Stoppers
the
isn't
production
terrible.
decided to use Ghostbusters and figure out the license.
Ghost Stoppers. It works. It's not as good, but it works.
Later, despite Universal, who distributed Filmation's Ghostbusters, denying the production the use of the name. After a street scene with 300 extras, all chanting Ghostbusters,
Meh.
a name which the production was explicitly not allowed to use, a producer told Columbia to give it one more shot. Incredibly, Columbia was able to secure the rights to use the title for $500,000 plus 1% of the film's profits.
Yeah, good for Sigourney Weaver. She didn't even get on that poster, but she still got her first same credit. Good for
Due to
her.
accounting tactics, however, Ghostbusters never technically made a profit, despite its huge success and box office gross. The popularity of the SNL stacked 1984 Ghostbusters
Really?
was immediate
That surprises
and intense.
me.
The theme song, sung by Ray Parker Jr., was a chart-topping hit, and Ghostbuster merchandise was aggressively marketed and aggressively consumed.
Oh yeah.
So popular was the ghostbusting foursome of Bill Murray, Dan Aykroyd, Harold Ramis, and Ernie Hudson that it would have been foolish of Filmation, which still had the rights to the Ghostbusters name, to not capitalize on it. The success of the Ghostbusters film would lead to a spin-off cartoon, and Filmation stepped up to the plate to create it. However, negotiations fell through, but Columbia continued production on their spin-off. Filmation
Oh, so it does lead into why the cartoon was called The Real
ready to
Ghostbusters.
take their slice of the Ghostbusters pie, did the same, quickly churning out their own Ghostbusters cartoon based on the 1975 sitcom.
Okay, it's been a while since I watched I think it was Phalis who did a whole retrospective on the Real Ghostbusters show. I think that was Phalis. Yeah,
The
it's
first
very
episode of
Hanna-Barbera looking
Filmation's
feel.
Ghostbusters would premiere on September 8th,
I'll be a
1986.
son of a Ghostbuster.
Exactly 1 week before Columbia Pictures Television debuted their animated
Yeah, I
show,
just like it
purposefully
better.
titled
Much
The
more
Real
90s.
Ghostbusters. The Ghostbusters War was back on. The Real Ghostbusters continued the adventures of Peter Venkman and his proton pack posse.
Oh, I want to go back there. Nothing to do with what he's saying. Just watch how perfectly this burger
The
lands.
adventures of Peter Venkman and his proton
Boom. It was like it was weighted. Or like had a metal bottom falling onto a magnet. I get animation, TV animation, they don't have much there, but like, would it be that hard to not have it land perfectly on the plate? Yeah.
pack posse. Filmation show, however, would feature the children of the Ghostbusters main cast, with the sons of Kong and Spencer leading the group. Tracy the Gorilla would also reappear, as did Kong and Spencer in the show's first episode, to teach their sons the trade of ghostbusting, although their personalities were noticeably different.
If you don't get him with the dematerializer, you can always fall back on the ghost gummer.
The animation was darker than its live-action predecessor and more serious, although
I mean, I love this. I love this background. That's awesome. They get claps.
it did find time for the occasional burst of slapstick. The Ghostbusters now worked out of the Ghost Command. They were equipped with Ghost Buggy, the talking car,
Jumping jumper cables. Next time, call before you drop in.
and
Oh, I
the
don't
young
like
help
that.
from friends such as Belfry the Bat and Futura, the Ghostbuster from the future.
I'm
The
okay with
series also had
Futura.
a primary antagonist, the nefarious Prime Evil, who resided with his ghostly henchmen in the Haunt Quarters.
See, this doesn't feel doesn't feel 90s. This feels early 80s.
Primeval, maybe not so coincidentally, looks suspiciously like He-Man's Skeletor. In true Filmation style,
I was gonna say
the
he
show
looks
was
more like
crafted
She-Ra's
quickly and
Hordak, but
cheaply,
okay.
reusing animation whenever possible. Filmation produced an astonishing 65 episodes, releasing them all between
Not
September
bad,
and
not bad.
December of 1986. Filmation
that
even created
Filmation fast
merchandise,
thing.
and the show continued in reruns for years. Still, the real Ghostbusters would top Filmations, with their show lasting 7 seasons.
You can tell
and producing
just
a total
why,
of
looking
140
here, why.
episodes from 1986.
Except for that one really awesome background from the other Ghostbusters thing. It's just a little more... It evokes like the WB animated Batman feel, you know?
In 1991, quickly becoming one of the most popular children's cartoons of the time. Filmation's Ghostbusters could not compete with the real Ghostbusters, and the existence of the show was confusing to the children that had just watched the hit comedy film and had not been alive when the Ghostbusters sitcom was on the air. Filmation's Ghostbusters continued the company's legacy of quickly made, crude cartoons, but to many of the kids watching them on Saturday mornings, this was just part of the charm. Filmation would last 3 more years after.
That you get interesting continuity there, because you can clearly tell the Filmation Ghostbusters, it looks like the shows that they were making from the 80s back then. You see that difference. You see that difference between the kind of lower quality budget cutting things, and then you have the slightly higher quality, a little more ambitious animation coming with Ghostbusters. It's like a great contrast coming out the 80s level of animation into that just golden era that was the 90s. With that one, with Batman, the Justice League animated series, Silver Wings, Samurai Pizza Cats. It just kind of lets you know there. Gargoyles.
After producing
Who did the things getting darker right, as opposed to what we'd wind up getting with comics and some anime.
the Ghostbusters cartoon, being sold by its parent company in 1989 and closing its studio.
It is too bad.
Unlike
That is too
Filmation's
bad.
show, the Ghostbusters franchise has cemented itself in the pop culture lexicon, with sequels, merchandise, and even another cartoon on its resume. And while the majority of people would call the team of 4 proton pack wearing comedians when they encounter the supernatural, there are still others that would rather.
It's like, really, you know what? I know. Okay, never mind. They tried doing another reboot. That was weird.
Rather call 2 sitcom veterans and a gorilla.
Well, I respect the gorilla. I'm gonna say it. I'm gonna say it. If they do when they inevitably do another Ghostbusters reboot, lose Slimer, bring back Tracy the gorilla.
This spooky episode of DefunctTV is sponsored by Squarespace.
Okay, I know all about that.
It is scary how Defunctland to get started today. And
Like I said.
happy Halloween.
Yeah, Halloween. Yeah. Halloween in May. Christmas in July, Halloween in May. Okay. Everything to those guys and whoever else is going to show up. Okay, now that was fun. That was informative. I had a lot of fun watching that one, so no regrets one way or the other. Like, comment, subscribe.